My name's Jim Bell, and I'm with Realty Executives. I'm a real estate agent right here in the Villages in Florida. And you might wonder how a guy went from raising horses in the panhandle of Texas to Wall Street. First of all, I have a Wall Street career that spanned about 40 years in the Texas area, and came to the Villages like everyone else to retire. And about a year into it, my brain was going to sleep. Can't say I was bored. There's so much to do here in the Villages, so I got into real estate, and I really like it. Really like the company I work for. Really like the people I work around. But you might wonder how somebody goes from raising horses to Wall Street. First of all, and that was a function of when I was right out of high school. I worked for the American Quarter Horse Association in Amarillo, Texas, and about 2 years into that, I got the opportunity to interview with Merrill Lynch in Amarillo. So I got that gig as far as a billing clerk in Amarillo. Went to graduate school in Dallas a couple years later and got out of graduate school, and lo and behold, my manager from Merrill Lynch called me, wanted me to go to their JET program. That stands for Junior Executive Training. And that means, in a nutshell, they shipped me off to New York City for about a year. I stayed up there almost a year, 11 months and 2 weeks, almost a year. And you might imagine how that looked. I showed up pretty much like this. I had on a pair of Wranglers, a Western shirt, hat, boots, the whole 9 yards. They probably thought I was from Mars in New York City, if you've ever been up there. That also happened to be the same time in history that options trading began in the United States. I was one of the first that started in the business in Wall Street that had any experience or knowledge at all about the theory about options trading, both puts and calls. In fact, the first index in the United States, as far as indexes on the S&P or the Dow or whichever index you want to talk about, none of them had been invented yet. So I was in on the ground floor of just about everything that later became my whole life. Options, derivatives of every kind, options on futures. I specialized, being in that part of Texas. We fed in custom feed yards from 6 to 8 million head of cattle a year. It's like 28% of the nation's grain-fed beef supply within a 100-mile radius of Amarillo. And we were big into the cattle futures market right as soon as I got back from training school. The other thing I got really adept at by force, I didn't just happen into this. I became a teacher literally the first week after I got back from training school in New York. My manager said, Jim, you did such a good job. We're all proud of you for doing what you did in New York. Now, Amarillo College District wants a investment counselor teacher. And I said, gosh, I've never taught anything in my life. He said, well, you better learn quick. You start Tuesday night. That was a Friday. So very quickly, I'm all of a sudden teaching in a college. And it didn't take me but about 10 minutes to realize when it came to investment matters, I was the smartest guy in the room. I'm sure everybody else had a lot more experience, a lot more everything in any other topic except investments than I did. And of course, I had a year's worth of background of working in every department on Wall Street, so I had something to talk about. Very soon after that, my manager put me to work teaching the ASC offices, little agricultural extension offices all throughout the panhandle of Texas, cattle futures business. It used to be that it's not as much used now as it was then at a retail level. It's all institutionalized now. But all these little farmers and ranchers would hedge their grain price risks and their price risks in their cattle market using the futures markets. And I was an expert in that too. Me and another guy taught just about every ASCS office in Texas at one time. I had little groupings of their farmers teaching them how to use these futures and then later options on futures to hedge the price risk out of their commodities. I moved from Merrill Lynch to Drexel Burnham Lambert in Dallas about 6 years later. And that started, a pretty budding career in Wall Street. I managed offices for Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter. Morgan Stanley was because of the Dean Witter merger after leaving Drexel Burnham. So I've done a little bit of everything, became independent, joined a friend of mine that owns a company called Worth Financial Group in North Dallas. He's also a country boy. He grew up in the cotton business down in Lubbock. Got here like everybody else to retire. Finally, after retiring from Wall Street, I got bored. My brain was going into a fog from not working. And so I got into real estate. Just happened on to the best real estate company, in my opinion, in the Villages, Realty Executives. And really like it. I really like dealing with people. It seems like the first 40 years or so of my everything career in Wall Street was helping people build their assets. Now I'm trying to help them manage the assets they got left because, let's face it, this is probably our last home. or among the last homes that we're going to buy. And some of them have bought 2 or 3 right here in the Villages. So you might wonder what makes me different than anyone else you probably could choose as a realtor in the Villages. And I'm actually proud to be working for the company I'm working with just because of the teamwork, the spirit that we have at Realty Executives. But one thing about my expertise is that I get to the root cause of just about everything you can imagine. For an example, in Wall Street, I learned at an early age what's called the Elliott wave principle and how to use Fibonacci mathematics in determining the ebb and flow of whatever it might be, the stock market, an individual stock, price point from where it is now, from where it may be in the future. And I found that it fits. It fits all the time, not part of the time. Fibonacci mathematics is a very succinct subject. You may have never heard of it. Google Fibonacci mathematics. You'll see that it touches everything in creation. And in fact, Fibonacci mathematics proves there was a creation. I try to bring that same expertise and that get to the bottom of everything in real estate that I did in Wall Street. That helps a potential buyer. We're in a buyer's market. Got so much inventory on the market right now, and not anybody seems to know why. I try to find out why. If a person is selling a home, same thing. I want to know everything about that house. I want to know why they're selling it, where they're going next, if they're downsizing, if they're upsizing, if they're going back home to Virginia, what they're doing, what's their motivation for wanting to sell this house. And I try to get that done, at top dollar. That may sound kind of convoluted, but sometimes I find myself on both sides, both the buyer and the seller side. I want those two to connect. In Wall Street, I had full right of power of attorney in all my clients' accounts. They trusted me. People can trust me in real estate the same exact way. So my approach with real estate is not too unlike my approach in Wall Street, and that is the clients come first, period, no matter what that is. When you think about buyers here in the Villages, we're probably buying our last house. You need to make the right decision. The right decision can only be made if you do it with proper knowledge of what you're doing. That's what I bring to the table. This may be you're selling your last home. I've dealt with a lot of widows that they've lost their husbands, or widowers that have lost their wives, and they're leaving the Villages, going back to be with their grandkids and so forth, because they're in their late 80s, early 90s. I get that. And so it's important to make the right decision for them too. One of the things that I think brings me to where I am now in the Villages in real estate is the company. We have 110 agents, and they're really good agents. Some of them have been in the business 20 years. And that's who I'm with 3 days a week. I'm twice with them in Zoom meetings, and once a week we have a caravan. We take those people out. We have a 40-person bus, and we take that in about 20 cars, and it really is a caravan. It looks like a band of gypsies going through the Villages. And we get out and critique each of those homes that just our agents have brought to the market in the previous 5 or 6 days. So we'll look at 10, 15 homes every single Wednesday. So it gives all of us a chance to know what the other people are doing. We know what they're bringing to market. We have a meeting at one of those houses every single Wednesday, and everybody talks about price declines, what's going on with their particular listings, that sort of thing. So we always have knowledge of what the market is. I share that knowledge with my buyers and my sellers. That's just part of my job. Real estate isn't just about buying a house. It's about understanding the markets. Certainly I understand markets. In Wall Street, I got to the bottom of it through Elliott wave principle and Fibonacci mathematics. I don't think anybody even knows Fibonacci mathematics like I do. I've taught it for 30 years. And so same thing in real estate. I don't think very many people go to the thoroughness that I do, and certainly my company does, about knowing the real estate market in the Villages. There's not only a buyer's market. We know why there's a buyer's market. We know where we think that's going in this buyer's market. Of course, in my part, I also keep up with the treasury markets and everything having to do with the financial markets, because they're all related, in my opinion. And so, but if you're considering buying and selling a home in the Villages, I'm your guy. I'm Texas tough. I'm your guy if it comes to real estate in the Villages. My phone number is 817-307-5678, or shoot me an email. Email is jwbell777@outlook.com. I got the 777 from the Panhandle of Texas too. That was my locker number at the Maverick Boys Club in Amarillo, Texas.